All right, wonderful. Thank you very much, Nathaniel. Good afternoon, everyone, or good evening in Gwen's case. It's the Thursday, January 18th, Solar Eclipse QSO party and other fun things, ham-side meeting. We've got a number of the usual suspects to be talking today, talking about our public relations and some of the articles we're working on and so on and so forth. I think I'd like to start with our special guest. I think most of you probably know, have heard or read his works in the past, Gwyn Griffith, G3ZIL, who's got some plans and some expectations for the upcoming eclipse. So Gwyn, we'll turn it over to you to start. How's that?
Okay, that's terrific. Thanks very much, Gary. Let me try and share my PowerPoint and then bring that up full screen. So hopefully you're seeing my full screen PowerPoint.
Yes.
Okay, terrific. It's been my absolute delight and thoroughly absorbing few months working on Whisper Demon. My Whisper Demon friends gathered their data during the 14th of October eclipse. And I've just got 4 slides to share with you this evening. And the first one here made me think, which is always useful, about an opportunity perhaps for the 8th of April total eclipse. So here we have a map of a number of the stations reporting Whisper Demon and actually sending FST4W, but that's not critical for this particular instance here. And I want to draw your attention to John Clark, TI4JWC, Costa Rica, right there, almost on the annular path. And John was using a transmitter from Paul Elliott, WB6CXC, the Whisperson 6. So that transmits simultaneously FST4W or Whisper every 2 minutes on each of the non-WAC bands, 80 through 10 meters. So you might say overkill, but for a transient phenomena like an eclipse, this is really pays dividends. And the observations I'm going to share are from 10 meters, 28 megahertz. The critical frequency remained high enough to not have complete gaps at about 5,000 meters range to KPH and KFS. KFS is under that cluster here, right on the coast. And all I'm showing in these graphs is really the presence or absence of a signal on the lower panel, or I've turned it into circuit reliability. So that's the percent of transmissions in a 20-minute interval that were received at KPH and KFS. So here we have paths of 5,000 kilometers from John, Costa Rica, that were definitely affected by the eclipse. And what intrigued me was the path in green here is to ND7M in Nevada. There we are, there's his map pin there. And then in orange, we have the Northern Utah SDR site, KS7OEI-1, and that's the yellow map pin up here. So either side of the track of the annular eclipse. And there are 2 breaks in reception with a recovery in between. So I started to think, well, what's going on here? And the answer is, having installed HiLAP from the University of Scranton GitHub site, highly recommended to all of you. Great tool and nice support from Devin. So let's have a look at what the ray trace tells us on a no eclipse day. And I mean, you might have a debate about what sunspot number, R12, to put in here. Now I've put in 125. And my reference for that it is the effective sunspot number for the 14th of October from these people at Northwest Research Associates. So if I choose the sunspot number 125, PILAP here 0, there's John, Costa Rica as the source, first hop, second hop. So well within the area of second hop, we have reception at Nevada and KFS and KPH, no problem. And that's what we see in the data. So we know that the passage of the eclipse will drop the effective sunspot number. So now the question is, so what drop in R12 does it take to push the minimum range of the second hop from about 3,000 kilometers to beyond ND7M in Nevada, but still leave the second hop reaching KFS and KPH? And again, that's easy to do. And after a few iterations, I end up with the sunspot number equivalent of 70. So down from about 125 to 70 has now pushed that second hop to over 4,500 kilometers. And so we now have no reception in Nevada and KPH. And what I think then was going on was that the first gap in that plot was the second hop being affected, and then a recovery as the eclipse was traveling over. So the eclipse is coming this way from California towards Costa Rica. So it affects this refraction, and we have a gap. There's some recovery while the eclipse is traveling here, and then we have another gap as it affects the first hop. So this is a what I postulate, and I'm really seeking and feedback on whether this is at all reasonable. So I thought, okay, well, 5,000 kilometers, that's about the distance from me here in Southampton to the east coast of the US. So let's put the map together. So here we have the map. There's me, Southampton, right on the south coast of the UK. And here's the Great Circle path in white to my good Whisper Demon friend, Pete Freeman, K6 RFT, who has an excellent receive site. So I can transmit. Pete would undoubtedly hear me. And as you see, that Great Circle path for the second hop, oh, I should say here. So what I've done now is to take PyLab and just take a sunspot number of 100. Who knows what it'll be on the 8th of April. And this is now 21 megahertz at 1930 UTC. And so now we have 1, 2, 3 hops sees my 21 megahertz signals to Peter. So you'll see here that both the second and the third hops, where we have ionospheric refraction, will take place well within the region of 80% obscured sun from the eclipse. And what's more, well within this region here, we have some great whisper spotters, including K9, Steve Franke himself, N8GA, KD2OM, VO2. These are top whisper spotters. So, if we're going to have an opportunity of actually receiving signals from the UK on, I'd suggest 21, 24, 28 megahertz at this time of the day for 3 hops, then will they be affected? So I think I've sort of convinced myself that whisper signals from the UK to the US could well be affected on 21 megahertz and upwards during the total eclipse. And on the basis of this, I've sort of submitted a little news item to the RSGB Radcom to try and encourage UK whisper stations to transmit on those frequencies the day before, the day of the eclipse, and the day after, so that we have that data. And so, the opportunity today is just to do this a reality check with you, and also then to let you know that I'm trying to get this publicity for UK involvement because of this terrific alignment of the Great Circle path and the eclipse path on the 8th of April. Thank you.
Nope, I got the punchline.
Excellent.
Whatever.
That was excellent, Gwen.
Do you see any weaknesses in that? Have you spotted, Nathaniel, you know, something that I've missed that will put the kibosh on this?
No, I think it's very encouraging. I think I can possibly offer you some additional resources that might help you to do a better analysis.
Okay.
And the thing is, Joe Cuba has now done his first prediction of what the ionosphere should look like using the SAMI 3 model.
Right.
I can show you that movie in a minute. And Devin should be getting close, I think, to having some way of getting SAMI 3 into PyLab. So then you might be able to reproduce your figures using not the IRI, but an Eclipse version of SAMI 3, which I think would help your case even more.
Yeah.
So let me see if I can bring up, Joe Cuba just sent this to me last week. This is the first prediction of what I have seen the ionosphere is supposed to look like for the April eclipse. It should be starting. It is running. We should see a difference soon. There it goes.
Hmm.
Yeah, I'll see something interesting in a second.
Ah,
Oh,
Mm.
I thought that was interesting.
gosh.
That was it. Play it again. So I was very surprised by that initial depletion, or I should say reduction in depletion.
Yeah.
Mhm.
What's the scale here? I can't see it.
Which
top.
scale do you want? It's
What do the
plus and-
colors mean?
plus and minus 10 differential TEC units. So a TEC unit,
Okay, whatever. Yeah, okay.
okay. It's plus or minus 10 differential TEC units. I think a TEC unit is 1 times 10 to the 16th electrons.
But the yellow part, it means there's extra electrons.
That's right. The yellow part means there's extra electrons, and the blue part means there's fewer electrons.
Where'd they come from?
The fewer ones or the extra ones?
Extra ones.
The extra ones. So right in this region, you can see that there's like a negative and a positive hump. This is right around where you have something called the equatorial ionospheric anomaly, or the EIA. And that's a region just plus and minus the magnetic equator. And the reason, and so the EIA, see if I can, equatorial ionospheric anomaly. So you would think that the ionosphere would be strongest right at the equator, because that's where the sun is, but that's not actually true. The ionosphere is actually strongest just north and south of the magnetic equator. And the reason for that is that there's electromagnetic forces right in the equatorial region that will push the electrons up away from the Earth.
Mm.
And they call that the fountain effect. And then when the electrons get to a certain height, the electrodynamic forces get weak and gravity takes over and pulls things back down. But instead of the electrons falling straight back down, they fall along the magnetic field lines, both to the south and to the north of the equator.
If I remember, that's why we kind of saw a barbell in the October predictions that Joe had run, if I remember, in that region.
Yeah, that's right. There was some sort of a plasma bubble towards
Right,
the end
okay.
of the October one. So I think, so what we're seeing here has something to do with that. Now, why you see extra here, as compared to normal, I'm not entirely certain, but this looks like it has to do with that equatorial atmospheric anomaly. And similarly, talking to Joe, he said that the part here where it's getting, this is the eclipse, and then it decreases right there. He said he thinks that's also due to the equatorial atmospheric anomaly.
So my takeaway from this is it's important to study a lot of different eclipses because of the path change and the effects in the ionosphere changes as the paths end up in different locations. Pretty cool.
That's absolutely true. That's why we like to say when we write proposals, every eclipse is unique. Yeah,
And
you're absolutely right.
is it that the most of the change in the TEC will happen in the F2 layer at that height?
I'm not sure, but we can get the data files or the model files from Joe, and we should be able to see what's actually happening in his model predictions.
This is John Landrigan in Memphis. Got a question. I'm going to be off the coast of Mazatlan on a boat during the start of the eclipse. And I'm looking for anybody's suggestions of what I should be doing while that is going on. I'll have one HF receiver and one SDR receiver.
Are you able to either run either a grape type of mode, or are you able to run a whisper daemon and capture the whisper spots?
Well, I can capture the whisper spots. I can just program channels in, and just run a series of listenings into a recorder. So I could theoretically scan 15 and 20. Let's see, what would I be? I'd be 10 meters, 12 meters, 15 meters, and 20 meters.
That sounds good.
And so, you know, I would have the I'll have a corner aft cabin on the ship. Now, the question that I have is that the ship is going to be moving. Will that have any effect on where and when the receptivity occurs?
I'm sure it will have some effect, but I guess you'd have to know how fast the ship is moving. And I'd imagine that the eclipse is moving much faster than the ship. So I'd imagine that the effect would not be large. But I think the thing to do is, if you are able to, in addition to monitoring the HF signals, also keep a GPS log of where the ship is when you make your reception reports, that could certainly help in the data analysis to understand what's happening.
Okay, well, I'll have, and this is the thing, I've got to know the radio a little bit better, I think. It's going to be a Barrett 4050 at this point in time. And it has an associated auto-tune vertical that has a GPS and sends it directly to the radio. So I think there must be a way, either with software or something in the radio itself, to link the course, and it could be as simple as just using a separate GPS receiver and then port that into OpenCPN, which will draw a trace of the ship's course based on that GPS information, and then just kind of tie it together. And the other option that I have is I've got an ICOM 7300 that basically can do the same thing, but it doesn't have the built-in GPS. The third option is I can bring an ICOM 7100, which has a GPS built in, and may actually, once I start recording with its built-in recorder, be able to keep GPS recording of what's going on at the frequency of choice, and just have that all set into, one Audacity recording or something of that nature.
Right. Yeah, that sounds good. I really am not familiar with this radio or its capabilities.
Well,
So I don't think I could give specific advice.
yeah, well, the Barrett is a channelized radio in the same category as the Codan and in the Furano, I think. And it has, with that GPS, it has 1 pulse per second timing, which I think is probably a good thing to have. But for right now, I've got everything set up around it because the antenna is so versatile, and it packs easily. The ICOM, I would have to go back and pull out a Codan antenna and use it through a converter just to get the frequencies aligned with the radio transmitter. But the idea of having the GPS built in and then having the recordability built in makes it a potential choice, but it's just a messy radio to work with.
Yeah.
If John, if you'd consider it, I have an extra Kiwi and a Raspberry Pi, and it would do everything you want. It scanned all, you could do 8 bands simultaneously. It has GPS referencing and location and 30 millihertz frequency accuracy. So, and it doesn't require internet connectivity to cache all of the spots, and could actually record. I don't know. I don't have IQ recording, but it certainly would do it all if you wanted to carry. I don't know if you're familiar with these.
Well, I've got a what is this? The Duo, the SDR Duo from RTL.
SDR Play.
Yeah.
Okay. That's not going to be useful. So
okay.
I mean, it is, but it's in essence a single channel, 2-channel device, whereas the Kiwi would give you all 8 channels, and it includes GPS referencing in the box. So you just need to have an antenna, a GPS puck someplace, and power, and a Pi, and powered up. So.
Okay, well, the Kiwi is a top hat for the Pi, or
basically it's a box. I mean, let's see. Here, it's a little box. It's a self-contained box. You give it power, it has Ethernet connector. It has a built-in, a web page that you can tune to. So
okay,
it's
because I've got the Raspberry Pi, I've got a 3 and a 4 sitting waiting looking for
Yeah.
job to.
Well, I mean, to simplify it, I could just send you all this stuff if you wanted. I mean, I've got one, I've got 3 of them sitting here doing nothing.
I
Well,
got my hand out.
if that interests you, that would be
Yeah.
something that, you need 12-volt power for it, and it's
Well,
really,
it would just be a Raspberry Pi wall wart, wouldn't it? Or
yeah, basically a wall wart to power it, and the Kiwi and the together with the Raspberry Pi, each is about the same size. And it seems like you're going to have such a unique location. It would be great to have reception data from out there, right in that dark blue spot.
yeah.
And it's to be very easy to set up. You would just plug it into the wall, and you wouldn't really have to do anything. Although if you could use it as a receiver and tune around, and if you haven't used the Kiwi, you could. There's plenty of them online, including several which I offer to the public. It's just you open your browser, kphsdr.com.
Okay. Yes. Say that again, please.
Why don't I? Yeah, I'll put a link up in the chat. And you can take a look at what the
Okay.
Kiwi's like for a listener. But for spot recording, Whisper Demon does that all automatically. There's nothing. You don't have to do anything. You just have to give it power and make sure it's.
Now, what would I use as far as a choice for an antenna?
I hang a wire out, longer the better, probably. I mean, receive antennas aren't the issue with receiving is local noise,
Okay.
your signal noise ratio. So that's going to probably be more your limiting factor than you don't need it for reception. You don't really need a resident antenna. It can help, but it's not as critical as when you're transmitting.
Well, I can bring like a balcony mounted ham stick for maybe 15 meters. I think I can pack that in a suitcase.
Yeah, well, that would probably work well. You could try it all. I'm sending out some transmitters soon, so I could send a receiver to you. I just but it does sound like you have a very unique opportunity to gather data at that location. So,
well, I've got that as one unique opportunity, and then in September the 27th, I'm on another cruise that's going to be the annular eclipse at the Easter Island Galapagos area. So I've got, I'm eclipse hunting on the ship. So if I can get a pattern established, it would be nice.
Well, that's fine. Okay. I just need your contact. We can get in direct contact, email contact, and
okay. Well, leave me your information down in the chat, and I will copy that down and just
okay.
the net is over.
Yeah, just send me an email, and that's my rob@robinet.us, my email address.
Okay, hold on. Don't change the screen yet. I was hoping Steve Serwin would be on today because he's got data from the October eclipse from the USS Lexington. I sent him a draft of what I was going to send to the guys at W5LAX, and apparently he has had all kinds of other distractions that are as compelling as what mine is. So if anybody runs into him, just give him a nudge. I feel badly about writing him every couple of weeks and saying, hey, are you anywhere closer to organizing that data? Yeah,
I think Steve had offered to host one of the Whisper Sound beacon transmitters. It is, he's near Austin or San Antonio or something.
Yeah,
San
so-
Antonio.
Yeah, I'm just looking for, we're looking, I think, Dave and Michael and that group in Missouri are going to host one. I'm going to send them. So I'm just trying to find transmitters along the path, just as we did during the October eclipse. We had transmitters and receivers along the path of that annular eclipse. So trying to organize, a similar kind of array of receive and transmit sites. Unfortunately, like John Ackerman is right on the path, and I think Cleveland is right in the path, right?
Yes.
So yeah, I was going to say maybe if you guys wanted to put up a whisper sonde for a few weeks before and after that eclipse event, that would be an you would be an excellent contributor to that, to gather data. And we, again, in the transmit side, you do need a resonant antenna. It helps at least a lot. But a trap vertical or a end fed, it's 80 meter half wave end fed would work as a transmit antenna. So if you have something like that available, of course it'll deafen any of your receivers nearby, even though it's only a watt. It'll certainly deafen them. So it needs to be a site where you don't expect to transmit. I mean, transmitters are good to locate them in urban noisy environments because that doesn't impair their effectiveness. And so if that's interesting to you, Gary, then we can talk about that as well.
Yeah, that sounds like it might be a better project for Case Western Reserve because my homeowners association doesn't.
Oh yeah, that's what I meant.
Issues too,
No.
So,
I
but
meant
the-
that's what I was.
Yeah.
I was meaning it in terms of your association with Case Western. So
Okay. All right, I'll maybe drop Dave Kaz in a note and see if he's thought about that a little bit too. So,
okay.
good discussion. Let's get back to Gwen. Gwen basically asked us the question. I think I enjoyed the presentation. I think it's fascinating what you're doing. Any other questions we can ask Gwen or we can do for you at the moment?
I think that's been useful feedback that you haven't seen sort of a real problem with it, and particularly grateful to Nathaniel for mentioning SAMI 3. I guess I was hoping that would be the case, because clearly when I just use PyLab, I'm altering the effective sunspot numbers at both the first hop and the second and the third simultaneously. Whereas clearly the actual disturbance is confined to a smaller area. So clearly that would be a more realistic model, but I don't think the lack of that realism would prevent some effect, having seen that from Costa Rica to the West Coast. So thank you. That's useful feedback, and very much looking forward to the SAMI 3 being available from Scranton. That's a terrific advance.
Thank you.
Just a quick question. I'm going to be in Southampton in July. Is there any chance I could visit with you for a cup of coffee?
Absolutely. Will you have come at the port?
Yes, I'm going out on Princess to Norwegian.
Oh gosh, goodness me, you do travel. Yes, I'm only about 3 miles from the port. Will I find you on qrz.com, John?
Yes, you will. Yeah.
Okay. I'll find you there. Yeah.
Yeah. That's great because we can talk about the upcoming annular eclipse at that time in September in Easter Island and the Galapagos.
Yeah.
If Ecuador hasn't blown them up yet.
Yes.
Okay.
Quick VH7DXR here, Nick. Thanks for the presentation, Gwen. The medium wave recordings, we did actually get one in Portugal for the annular eclipse. So it's quite similar to what you were doing or what
Right.
you plan to do.
Okay.
And of course, much lower frequencies. And so far, difficult to find any effect, but still, a fair bit of time to spend on it yet, I think. However, there will be listeners available in Britain for the upcoming eclipse in April, and so we might be able to get some interest there, which would be, sort of another look at what you're trying to look at as well, if you're interested.
Okay, and that's at MF.
Yes, that's correct. Yeah, that's using
right.
medium wave broadcasters as signals or beacons, I guess you would call them.
Yes, yes. Well, I mean, that's straightforward enough to do some pile-up simulations and see what
At that frequency.
what might
Yeah.
happen. I should also have said that there are a few people in the UK, of course, interested in listening at 24 kilohertz to NAA. And yet that's yet another transatlantic possible effect.
Yeah. Well, it'd be great to have, this spread of frequencies, and, to see what the effects are. And, sort of, presumably it's going to give you a better idea of, what's happening in the ionosphere, during the period of the eclipse.
Yeah. Thank you, Nicholas.
Okay, very good. Thanks. It's been a long time since we've had some significant science discussions of this time slot. So it's very much appreciated, Gwen. I hope that'll help you out a little bit too. I mean, my takeaway is that from the citizen science perspective, for the most part, I mean, we're preparing, we're getting our stations ready, we may be building a grape or so on and so forth. We pretty much expect the eclipse to kind of come and go, and we sit back and see what the research turns up. It's good to see that folks like you, the Joe Hubers of the world, and of course Rob, are doing a lot of work to prepare ahead of time, and using this as we talk about controlled experiments and whatnot. But there's a lot of thought, like I say, going into it pre-eclipse to enhance the results that we expect to see, or maybe something different will come up. But it's very rewarding to watch that.
Undoubtedly, but I think this is a nice lesson from the October eclipse to apply to the April. That's terrific pairing. It's not going to come around many times in our lifetime.
Very true. Very true. Okay. If everybody's good, we'll go on and conduct a little bit of SEQP business, I guess. One thing I see, Bill, KAT is on. And we had mentioned earlier, I don't know if you caught it, but I know we've had some discussions about the folks with NOAA and finding an amateur club to help them out in Dallas. And I think Mackenzie's taking care of that, Bill. So I don't want you guys working in parallel purposes. That's all.
Do you have it in hand, Mackenzie?
Yes, sir, I do.
Okay, then I'll turn off the section manager then, looking for help.
Good.
Thank
Okay.
you.
Yeah, I just want to make sure you guys didn't duplicate efforts and whatnot. So since you guys had talked, so. All right. Thank you both. Ed, you want to give us a brief update on the public information side of things?
Yeah, I'll be brief because there's not much that's changed since last week. So just in terms of publications, I think we're pretty much on schedule, and I think we've booked what we need to book. So I think, but you name the publication, I think we've got something scheduled between now and April. So that's all good. In terms of webinars, we booked 3 in the last couple of days. Nathaniel, I followed with Anchorage. I have not heard back, probably just with time change and everything else. So we need to set that date up. Pardon?
I said, okay.
Okay, great. Okay, yeah, just that we're on the same page there. And Jay, I've got you booked as well. Okay, just in terms of the piece that we talked about. So we're moving on that. We did a big presentation last week with Limark out on Long Island, and that was really well received and actually spun off a lot of other separate discussions from that. So we've also gotten the announcements also went out on the ARL PR committee group reflector. And interestingly enough, Sierra Harrop, W5DX, who's the PR person there, unexpectedly really supported our press release or our note on the reflector. and actually followed with her own note, reinforcing ARL's partnership with us on that. So obviously encouraging clubs to get involved, and just if you need more information, and here's the HAMSI address to be able to move that. So good friends have helped us out there. And just also too, we've gotten out a number of press releases, specific to the Cleveland Conference, to the Gladstone Challenge, and obviously to the SEQP. And in terms of podcasts, Gary, AFA, did a really great sort of gangbuster presentation on Amateur Radio Roundtable on Tuesday night. So good was Gary, is that Tom wrote me late this morning and said he doesn't want you on after the eclipse. He wants you back before the eclipse. So we need to work out a date to follow with that. But he also said that he'll do something with us after the eclipse is over. Okay, so we get a couple of different chances to work with them on roundtables. Mackenzie, I got your note. I did reply on a couple of people that I know, okay, in terms of contacts. We also got on, and Gwen, you'll be interested, we got a mention on the ICQ podcast this last week. Okay, and I know Martin Butler really well. I think I might have mentioned that. So if you need any help through Martin, I'll drop you a note separately and we can connect with him. Okay, for anything that we need to do there. I'm certain that there's things that are sort of dropping off. Obviously, Hamcation, is coming up next month. Gary and I will be there, running the booth. If you're coming, please let us know. Okay, so that, not only can we give you something to do, but obviously, we could sort of, obviously be part of the whole, experience in terms of looking at Hamcation and what we need to do there. And I think I'm probably missing something, but it's nothing that, just obviously just mentions in terms of QRZ and Amateur Radio Newsline, just sort of promoting the fact that we're doing sort of webinars / workshops, and they do pull. I mean, we get at least a reference a week, in terms of following on that. And I guess one thing that I'd like to do as we get a little bit closer is maybe just do our own generic rather than ask, for club participation, is that we just do our own presentation and just do a general invitation and see what we can do in terms of bringing a larger number of hams in. Maybe we just have to take a look at our Zoom capabilities to see what we can do with that, just as we get a little bit closer. But that's about it. Okay, so while some things have changed, a lot hasn't changed. But I guess we're just sort of moving along as we get closer to April. So Gary, back to you.
And I can also say I did a podcast interview with Ria and
Yes.
RJ last night. So
last night, okay. And did that run? I don't. Was that live?
I don't.
Think it was, right?
No, it was not live. We just
Okay.
did a Zoom. We were supposed to do yesterday morning, but something came up for her, so we just did it last night, 9:15 p.m. So
okay, that's great. And I know she was traveling, so okay.
Yeah.
So yeah, perfect. So that's where we are so far. So 2 in, and I'm looking to get another 2 to 3 podcasts, which I think we can get between now and April. So
that's
Yeah, it's kind of like a snowball rolling downhill. It just keeps getting bigger and bigger. Watching the inbox, like this group from up in Anchorage, it kind of came out of the blue and looking for not only an interest in having a speaker, but questions about putting up a magnetometer and can we use a grape and so on and so forth. So all these things build on one another. And it's kind of like fishing, I guess. You got to throw your line out into the water. You're not going to catch anything, right?
Yep.
And I think we've got about 10 or 12 different lines out there, and Ed's watching them all bounce. So that's
yeah. And actually, that just spins off a thought too. Is that Nathaniel did Frankfurt Radio Club last week? I think, right, Nathaniel?
I did. I did Frankfurt Radio Club. Was the last 2 weeks ago already? So far, I've done the Marpletown, Newton Amateur Radio Club, Frankfurt Radio Club, both on Zoom. And then I did Ham Radio University in person.
Yeah. And I've got a conversation tomorrow with Sid, NH7C, who's the PIC for Maryland, Virginia, and DC. But he's also the PR guy for PVRC. Okay, so so that should help us in terms of getting on their calendar. And then Gary and I talked about Dave Sumner with YCCC. Okay, in terms of reaching out to them so that we can cover all the major contest clubs, at least on the East Coast right now. So.
Yeah, and one comment from Mary Lou as I was preparing for the amateur radio roundtable tonight, I got to the end of the presentation with a slide that thanks our the universities and grantees and all that, and I did remember to thank the U.S. taxpayer. So that's sunk in now. So I think that'll be a regular feature.
Yeah. Well, you were a hit. I've got to say, for Tom to write back to say he wants you sooner than later is always a good thing. So
that's so
we'll
wonderful. Thank you so much.
yeah. So
We'll
anyway, all good. So back to you.
A couple of things in our articles, just because while Mackenzie's here, she and I have been going back and forth on a few things. She did you wrote up a pretty nice article for the AR, for QST, Mackenzie. I got a couple of comments back to you. Do you need anything from me in the way of graphics or images, or are you ready to send it off to the league, or what are you doing with that?
I wanted to wait for some images, maybe
Okay.
some that you thought would be appropriate for the articles, and then once that's ready, with your permission, I'd send it off.
No, okay. Yeah, that's good. I just want to make sure you're waiting on me, and you are. So I'll take
Yes.
care of that sooner rather than later. Also,
Okay,
and I
thank
know
you.
I've got your on the air article as well. I was going to go over that today, but we got a snowstorm coming, so I had to go out and buy people food and cat food today. So first things first. So anyhow, very nice job on both those. We're moving along pretty well. So okay, gotta keep going on that. Well, if there's a snowstorm, I'll be home tomorrow and I'll be working on this stuff. So that's great. Okay. Oh, and the Hamcation as well. We're scheduled for a forum at 1 p.m. on Friday as well. They were nice enough to log into their website, put in our details, and they put us on the schedule. So we'll be on one of the forums too. Kind of like a mini Dayton. Only 20,000 people instead of 30,000, if that's possible.
That's fantastic, Gary.
Yep. So I'm learning. I've been watching you for a year now, right? I'm starting to figure this stuff out on my own.
But they're all in shorts. Trust me on this one. So
yeah, I can't get over that. You said, they talked about the tents for the forums or air conditioning. I'm going, it's February. We need air conditioning in February.
I did present down at Hamcation one time, so that was the last. I think that was the last thing I did before the pandemic.
it was.
Well, I think Hamcation is liable to punch Dayton off of the top of the roster board when it comes to Hamfest. They've got the location, they've got the weather, and they got Mickey. So
That's right. Yeah.
What else do you want?
Yep.
Even if he is in the public domain, they still got Mickey. So or part of him.
That's an interesting point, John, because the demographic is a bit younger for Orlando than Dayton. Because cams do bring families and they do hang around. So yeah.
Maybe we need some children's activities in our booth, Ed. I can't help you there, so I don't know what to do.
Yeah, I'll have to think about something for that.
Okay. I think we've also had made mention a couple of times tonight about the workshop at CWRU in March. There was some chatter early on. Maybe it was you, Nathaniel. Somebody did a lot of work and really cleaned up the workshop webpage last week. And put the information about the rooms has been corrected. I see our grantees went in there. We've got another invited speaker, I think I saw up there, and whatnot. So that's looking pretty good right now. That was looking really good. So.
Christina Collins, Nathaniel Bishner, I think John Gibbons, David Kasna all met on Zoom, and we went through that. And so we now have as an invited speaker Dr. Kate Zotti. She is a MSTID HF ray tracing expert from the Naval Research Laboratory. So she'll be giving a tutorial on HF ray tracing. And a person who's not on there yet, but agreed on Monday night is Phil Karn, KA9Q, and he'll be talking about KA9Q radio. So we again have a very, very nice complement of invited speakers.
Excellent. So we'll be able to justify those expensive hotel rooms, Jay. So you'll be glad you came. Don't worry about it. Back to life. Okay. I didn't have a real formal agenda because I knew that we had a lot of topics to cover today, and I think we've got through most of the stuff I needed to. Is there any questions or anything else anybody wants to bring up before we close out the hour?
It's a great job, Gwen.
Yes, it was very enjoyable.
Really good.
It's amazing how many comments I get from people saying, "Hey, I couldn't attend the meeting, but I watched it on YouTube later on." So it does definitely get some play. So you'll have more fans after this one, more followers, sure.
Definitely, and I think this is so wonderful because that's one of the things I really want to see happen with this group is to have people who are not me. People volunteer to come and say, hey, this is the thing I saw and here's my analysis and here's what I'm doing. So Gwen, this is just wonderful. And we've had some of these things from other people as well, but I really think it's fantastic. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you all. Thank you. It's a pleasure. It's a great set of people to work with the Demon crowd.
Very good. Okay, if there's nothing further, going once, going twice, I guess we'll go on. I'll start our Thursday evenings for most of us. So thank you very much all for attending, your input, and for listening and whatnot, and participating. And we'll have another one next week.
Stay warm, everybody.
Thank you, everyone.
Exactly.
73
Stay
all.
warm.
73.
Bye bye now.
See everybody.
Bye.
Yeah, 73s.